Hello and welcome to this super special episode of Wild, Wealthy, and Liberated, where I have a beloved, honored guest who has had such a tremendous impact on my life and I'm sure on so many others. Jessica Garret, who is my therapist and who is a somatic practitioner and therapist and artist and so many other beautiful things in this world. And I'm going to give you the space to share anything that you'd like with the viewers or the listeners of who you are or what you're about or anything that feels alive for you.
Oh, thank you, Jasmine. I'm so happy doesn't really feel like a word that encompasses the energy I'm feeling as we start today. I'm really touched. It's very beautiful, this invitation to be here together. My goodness. So I start with that, just with honoring that, like, even before we jumped on to recording this, I was already feeling the energy of your invitation and the sort of expression of love that you're trying to capture here today in our conversation, right? That you're inviting people into this energy, into this vibration, into our conversation together. So I start with that. Now, to say a little bit about me, I'm your therapist. But, I've been moving away so much these days from the structure of that word, because for so many of us, it means a certain thing. What is it to be a therapist, right? I've moved away from even calling myself that, because it feels like such a limiting structure. So the work I do, even trying to call it something, I find I struggle, but I work in healing spaces, working with others as a healer. But truly, even that feels too hierarchical, because what I really feel like lately I am excited to do is just meet people at their heart. Right? I just want to meet people in the heart space. And any structure that prohibits a person from feeling met by me in the heart, I've been really trying to dissolve, because some of the most profound experiences I've been having personally when I go in search of myself with others is when they show up and they're like, here is me, and here's my heart, and here's how listening to you reaches me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's through this connection. And I have one person in particular I'm working with, Janine Nadler, who wrote Spiritual Anatomy. Her and I have been traveling together now for 2 years, and she's become, at first I was like, okay, you're a therapist. No, not really. You're a healer. Oh, no, not really. You're my mentor. No, not really. God, you're just another phenomenal human meeting me, listening, feeling my energy, responding to it with yours, and we're creating something magical here together in those spaces of listening, of deep listening. That's what I'm inspired to do. That's what I'm wanting from every exchange. I actually said this the other day to someone. I said, I'm not interested in transactional exchanges. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to really reach each other, to really be moved by each other. So that's what I think is so beautiful about this invitation, Jasmine. It's what are we going to create here together by meeting each other here? It's phenomenal. The possibilities are endless. Right? You're not interviewing me. We're with each other in this like space of creation. And wow, yeah, And so I use the body for that. I use breath for that. I'm really listening from a very internal place. I'm inviting us to do that together, to use that resonant field together. To what's your body telling you? What's my body telling you? What's the magic? And that's where the artistry comes from. So I know one of your questions is kind of around like how like expression is birthed from spirit. And that's it, right? When we're doing that kind of deep listening, then we're in the act of creation. Right? Because our body and our spirit will speak to us in color. It will speak to us with image. It will speak to us with fragments of words that become poetry. It will speak to us with a memory that then gets transmuted into an expression or a gesture or movement. So once I began to journey deeply into this body as a vessel that created magic, then my desire to create was just exponential. Like it's kind of like limitless. I'm like, ooh. It's very exciting. So yeah, I'm, as you can tell, I'm pretty excited just to have this conversation with you.
Mhm. Mm. Mm. Your words they're so felt. I feel like one of the many reasons I felt so grateful for your presence in my life and in my journey is because in simply who you are and how you show up, it completely dissolved and dismantled the ideas of what I thought therapy was. And I know you were speaking about your journey with that word and labels and hierarchies and things like this. And when you're bringing in the magic and bringing in the art and bringing in the body, all of those for me just resonate so intimately with my spirit in how I look back in who I was with our first session, which was going on 4 years ago at this point. I was in New York, so intensely, chronically anxious and stressed and in overdrive and unsafe in my body. I came in with all of my protective mechanisms. I was using spiritual bypassing to just avoid my pain. And through working with you, I got to know myself and got to know my body in a way I didn't know I could with any person who might identify or call themselves as a therapist, which changed my whole life. And it really is I think I'm realizing this in this moment, that it was in my work with you that I realized I wanted to be holding space for others in that depth of what is possible in meeting the parts of ourself that had felt unsafe to exist or to be met or to be loved or to be cared for or to be accepted. And I feel like that's the power of having the kind of work that is so much more than what might be under like talk therapy or under just like cognitive therapy, just ways of trying to understand the mind, but actually coming into the infinite wisdom of the body and of higher forms of intelligence and of the multi dimensions of our world and beyond our world. And you have such a gift for welcoming all of those in that I think it's so unique and so rare in that industry. Uh, and so I just want to name that and to
Mm,
thank you for that, and to see also that looking back at that point and what I thought healing meant or was for me, which was very much coming from the fixing what is wrong place, into what healing is for me in now, in reclaiming the power within myself to change the stories that I am living under, and to support other people to do the same.
mm,
So I would
mm,
love to hear,
mm.
just with that, how you have felt yourself stepping into the experience of what space holding means and feel like for you in your evolution in that aspect of your life.
Yes. Oh, I love your um, taking us back together to New York and that first meeting and my Astoria at the time I was living and working, and I had two offices in New York and one in Manhattan and one in Astoria. And just having, I was, this is the beautiful thing about the body. We are not, we are in our minds caught up in the perception of time, right? But
Mhm.
our body can travel through time with just the invitation. So I can go back and I can feel and remember that moment with you where you walked in with your skateboard. I just like, I can feel it. I just remember, and my body has a certain sensation. So I loved your invitation to take us back there, because also what I can feel not only is your presence, but my body presence at that time too. Who was I in that body then, right?
Mm.
I was a very different person even then in that body, right? I was a very different
Mhm.
person then. So then this invitation in your question around kind of even my own personal journey, our evolution together, our togethering and the evolution that it's brought us to. Because that's the thing about this is
Mhm.
it is through the coming together with others that we are changed, that we are touched, that we are moved in directions, right? And so in our little relational field, you and I have touched each other in such a way that this is where we are now. This is how we've arrived, right? We arrived here together, which is beautiful, right? We brought each other here together to have this conversation, to acknowledge all the togethering we've had up until this point. It was such a beautiful thing to feel the evolution of that in our bodies here together.
Mhm.
And it has me, like without discrediting all the things that all the fields of healing do. I think they all have, to a certain degree, value, right? So, like when I began at 19, I had a very, in therapy for myself, I had a very phenomenal human sit across from me who was a psychoanalytic psychotherapist. She had done analysis. Iris Gersten, phenomenal human being who met me in my 19-year-old self, and who met me in her way, and who really truly mothered me in the way I needed to be mothered and met at that time, but from a very traditional model. Right? And with the years of working with her, I was then ready to go further. And this is what's so beautiful in terms of like thinking about it in terms of these bodies and our developmental stages, right? Like the infant has to start off in a certain way, dependent, held, nurtured, nourished, to then begin to take steps away, little by little, to journey into the world of separation and together, right? So that embryo of that first experience of therapy was really essential for me to then step away and say, oh, what else is out there for me, right? Which led to finding myself in wanting to do this too. Ooh, I want to do what she does. That's what led me to go into getting my license as a clinical social worker. I got my master's as very much as a result of being in that space with her and seeing what could happen. And then I studied that and I went on to the world of that. And I was like, oh, I want to keep doing this. I want to keep exploring how to do this. And went on to work on inpatient psych units, went on to work at NYU as a crisis response counselor. And for a really long time, I felt really, truly met in the role of therapist. I was like, okay, I feel like what I'm doing feels right to me and feels satisfying to me. And I don't feel like I'm longing for more right now, until my own body began to go through something. At my mid 30s, I really wanted to have a baby. And I was struggling to have a baby. I couldn't get pregnant. And I had to go through a year of trying and then fertility treatments. I got pregnant with IVF, and then I miscarried at 10 and a half weeks. Everything stopped then at that miscarriage. I was already pretty despondent because it felt like so much I was feeling betrayed by my body. How could you not do a thing that everybody can do? I found myself in therapy questioning my body, but my therapist, who was a wonderful therapist, wasn't really being with my body.
Mm.
And I remember going to a yoga class and being with the yoga practitioner during this time and feeling really held in that experience. Oh, my body's being attended to here. My spirit's being attended to here. But how come that's not happening in this beautiful, deep relationship I have with this therapist? How come my body is not being met there? And so I had this, this really deep soul, and this happens to us, right? We have these sort of life moments that kind of shatter us apart. Often it's the body that will do that. It's something that's happening in the physical body. That is a spiritual awakening. The physical body often is the place where most of us will feel kind of torn apart in order to reconnect to our soul. And in that whole cycle of trying to get pregnant and miscarrying and then getting pregnant while very despondent on my own with my beautiful daughter and journeying in that pregnancy with her in this body that felt like it had been through so much, I started doing some investigating. And I found myself reading Dr. Peter Levine's work, whose somatic experiencing is his teachings. And The Body Keeps the Score. And I started reading all of these books about the body and going, where has this been? In all of my career as a therapist, how come this was so not a part of my training? I said, oh, no, okay, I need this. My body needs this. So I went on and signed on to study somatic experiencing, and simultaneously also began journeying in other experiential models. I was like, what's breath work? I had a friend who actually invited me to a breathwork ceremony. And it was my year of saying yes to this friend. And I said, okay, sure, whatever you say, Mary, let's go. You're tuned into something, I'm going. And we went, and I was like, oh my God, what is happening in here? Wow, who am I? All of a sudden I was discovering a me that I had not felt ever before. And then from that moment on, and now we're talking about 10 years ago at this point, maybe longer, actually 12 years ago, with my daughter's 12, I said, I've got some work to do here with this physical body. I have to come back into relationship with me. There's a lot here I had not been with. So through my training and somatic experiencing, through my breath work, I began to care for my soul, because that's really what it was about. And that's when I began to learn that both the body and the breath were essential in caring for the soul. That we have 3 energetic bodies, that we have the thinking body, that we have the feeling body, and then we have the spirit body. And when we're in psychotherapy and more traditional models, we're really only privileging the thinking body. And it's through other experiential practices that are more body-centered that we start to experience body, this, the sort of feeling body, the sensation body, and the spirit body. And when we bring in all of these phenomenal ancient practices that exist, in addition to honoring how we construct meaning based on what we're feeling, based on what the soul is signaling to us. So we begin to integrate the communication of that like superhighway that we are of electronic information. And that's, I wouldn't even call it healing. It's just like, that's where like we become whole again, right? We return to this feeling of wholeness, right? Those missing pieces of us begin to really become illuminated. And I couldn't have done that alone. I needed to do that in the presence of others. I needed to be witnessed. I needed to be held. So even Ginny, who I work with now, we talk about holding space, and she thinks it's hysterical to use that word.
Mm.
She goes, what are we talking about here? Holding space. Space does not get held. We enter into space together. We enter into vibration together. We enter into the heart together, right? We step into what's already all around us. We don't hold it. But you know, it's a beautiful thing to consider this thing. This is like what we're doing, right? I'm not holding space for you to step into. We're just stepping into the space together. And then you get to tell me what you're feeling in space, and I get to tell you what I'm feeling in space. And then we get to share, like, what's the space now feel like now that we've both felt it together? So that's a very long answer to your question. But I think essential in understanding how I arrived to this, and how I want to be, it'd be remiss for me not to mention that literally every human I've encountered has also been essential to my arriving here today. So every single relational exchange I've had with every person I've been with, whether they've been with me and listening to me, or whether I've been the one receiving and listening and responding, has shaped and touched me in such a way that that's my embodiment now. And so you're such an essential part of that. That's what's so beautiful, right? Like you're, like, you thank me, I go, I thank you for being the heart that you are, and showing up the way that you have, and offering what you receive, and receiving me in that. It's really beautiful.
Thank you. Something that's showing up for me in this dialogue around what one of the things I'm getting in the impact, right? The impact that we have on others, the impact that others have on us, the impact of those who were, who may not be with us in the same way. And it brings me into this this reflection. I had a feeling that there might be reflections that show up in this
Absolutely.
conversation of all that I was carrying when I first met you, from how I had been impacted and how much I've experienced myself through our work together and through our journey, integrating the parts of it that feel resonant with who I have been becoming, and also giving myself permission to be letting go or releasing the parts of it that have served their purpose. And that has to do, you know, with the spiritual journey, in the spiritual sense of continually choosing to evolve, the way that I am choosing, or that we are choosing, to allow people or allow other energies or other attachments in our own space or in our own body, and also speaks to the deep trauma work that we did and that we do.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to just speak into those pieces around
Mm.
impact that we carry. And I know for me, I have felt so weighed down by the trauma that I was carrying, and that is continuing to heal and to dissolve and to transmute when the triggers show up. But when I, again, going back, when I look at who I was then, the 4 years ago, and just how burdened I felt then.
Yeah.
And you've seen me in my darkest, heaviest, falling apart, I don't
Mm.
want to exist moments.
Yeah.
And you've also seen me in my, oh my God, I can't believe that this is my life, that I'm living this dream life, but also the experiences of not feeling safe in the experience of the dream life, that
Yeah.
it's like it didn't quite land, that was happening through
Yeah.
these big stages of my own growth and of my own uh, liberation. And so, speaking into, the wounds, we've worked through mother wounds, we've worked through abandonment wounds, we've worked through deep ancestral lineage work. And I'd love to open up the space for anything that is coming through for you around just the nature of transforming those wounds into wisdom, into embodied wisdom.
Mm.
And maybe your own experiences that might want to be shared, or even just reflections of anything I've said about my own experience. All of that is welcome.
Mm. Mm. Thank you for that invitation. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's kind of reminding me of a number of things, but, even just taking that piece around the miscarriage of my first pregnancy as an indicator of my ability to feel internally what is surfacing as a result of this loss is an indicator of energy that has been here for much longer than just this
Mm,
wound, this loss, right? When the heart of my growing baby stopped, it reminded my body of all the times my heartbeat was interrupted. My own life felt interrupted. My own ability to feel like I was safe in the world was interrupted, right? Because that's the thing. None of us are free from those moments. All of us traveling in these human bodies will experience, some of us more than others, tragic loss. Some of us will experience intrusions that unmoor us, that disorient us, that leave us feeling like we can't go on, or that we'll never be safe again. That is a quality of the human experience that none of us escape. And that energy of that, there's a lot of trauma literature that talks about trauma being not necessarily what happened, but the fact that it happened too fast,
mhm,
without enough information, without enough support, without enough time, right? And it's how that lives in the body that creates the tensions that we carry, that creates the structural stories that we create as a result of that, right? And so healing from that, and I put that in quotes, but really what I hear it as is liberating that compressed energy
mm,
is what we're here to do, right? And we're here to do that together. So why it's so essential for all of us as humans to come into relationship with our body is because therein lies the wisdom. That's where we start to listen, right? Oh, that thing that happened to me that I've constructed a story about the world, about myself. If I were listening to how the body tells me where that information is, what do I notice? Oh, my chest gets tight. Oh, my pelvis. Oh, my stomach. Oh, my back. Oh, my, I start to feel this. Oh, there's heat here. Oh, I get this image, or there's a color. Okay. And then we're going to listen to that evolution of that story, because that's where the liberation is, right?
Mm.
And I was saying this to a client the other day, because it was like, well, I don't understand. Like, I'm tracking the sensation of this, but why am I still feeling the emotions that I do? Why am I still in the story of this? I say, if we're still stuck in the story, so if for me it was, there were so many stories I had with that miscarriage. One was, obviously, I can't trust my body. My body, there's flaw in my body. Then it was, I'm gonna die alone. I'm never gonna. My life ends with me. Right? Then it was, I'm not enough of a woman to carry a baby. Right? Oh, there were so many stories. There's so many stories. This is, I'm bad. So many stories. I had to be with each story and the energy of each story and the emotion of each story. Oh, there's a lot of sad here. There's a lot of energy of what feels sad here. I need to move this. So if we are still stuck in the story, to me, what I always hear, if the story is just a pattern that's just on repeat, it's like a dream. You can dream and dream and dream. And if you're still dreaming the same dream and it's a repeated dream, what I'm hearing our soul telling us is, you haven't figured out the full meaning of what's being transmitted to you through this dream yet.
Mm. Mhm.
We have to be with this dream for longer, really listen to the depth of this dream. We haven't gotten there yet. When you get there and you feel that vibration and you go like, oh yeah, I feel confirmed, that is what this dream is telling me, then whatever energetic blocks were there that were created by your soul to like surface that dream imagery, that starts to move. And that dream's not coming back because that energy is moving now. And you
Mhm.
dream something else now. It's going to show you another block, another place where there's an energetic block, right? So same thing with the story that we find ourselves on repeat. If I'm continuing to see my life send me the same version of the same story, I haven't released the energy there yet, the emotional blocks there yet. Ginny and I were traveling with this the other day when we were talking about emotion. And I said to her, what's so fascinating ever since I've been working with her? I said, I don't feel emotion anymore the way I used to. I don't feel day to day that things make me feel sad or angry. I feel energy. Ooh, that thing that you just did. I could feel that inside. Like, mm. I feel it as energy, but I'm not quick to say I'm angry,
Mhm.
because it feels much more expansive than that. It's not contained to that little thing. So we were talking about like, oh, emotion, energy and motion. We came up
Mhm.
with categories of emotion
Mm.
to show us where things weren't moving.
Wow.
Isn't that cool? We came up with the lexicon of energy not being in motion.
Wow.
Sad is a container for where energy is not moving, a label for where energy is not moving. Angry, they feel different, right? They feel different. The energy, the quality of the vibration, the energy is different. We just created these phenomenal words, like we saw color in the sky. And we're like, we're going to call that blue because it's there. I don't know. There's something stuck inside of me. It feels like something like this. If it were moving, it wouldn't feel like this at all. But because it's
Mm.
stuck, it does. So we're going to call it this, right?
Mm.
So that I say all of this because when we begin to work with body, when we begin to work with breath, when we begin to work with dreams and images, when we begin to move the energy, and the energy is the stuck, and trauma causes stuck. Events like these cause the stuck, the compression of energy in our bodies. When we begin to move that stuff, the quality of how we feel changes, and the words we use to describe how we feel changes.
Mm.
So I hope that answers a little bit of the question here. But in terms of trauma, even I have a hard time calling things trauma, because again, that's a really small container. We get
Mhm.
really attached to these words.
Mhm.
I'm traumatized. I'm angry. We over identify with them. I'm not dismissing them. We all have stuff happen to and in us. And our work really is to just really appreciate, what are we here to release from that? How are we holding that unnecessarily? How can we get support to move it? So I have
Mhm.
watched you do that. Your body feels so different now. And even the way you speak of your experiences are not the same. They're not the same, right?
Mhm.
Your lexicon has expanded. The way you feel in relationships to the things that have happened has shifted. And we are continuously on that journey, continuously feeling deeper and deeper what's here and how it wants to be expressed and supported.
Mhm. Mm. Wow, I love this way of looking at energy work, is how I'm saying it.
Mhm.
And I know that just in hearing you and in receiving the opening around the detaching, or like the not having the emotions be, or rather the energy that's moving be labeled as something like uh anger, or, and it makes me think of grief too, because I feel like rage and grief are probably two of the heavier energies that I've worked with you and in my life in general, and alchemizing
Mhm.
those energies and learning how to navigate feeling safe enough in my body for how big those emotions felt, without having the old pattern, which I experienced so much and I experience with my clients, of being stuck in it and then drowning in it. And that was one of my biggest fears. I just know from my really intense depressive periods where I was so afraid I was going to get stuck in the emotions and drown in the experience of them, and I wouldn't be able to find my way out again in a healthy way, or in a way that just didn't uh leave me as what's a word around this? I think broken is a good word. As
Mhm.
broken as I had
Mhm.
felt, which
Mhm.
is so interesting, just to reflect on how differently I move through emotions now, and how much more quickly I can allow them to be processed, or to be expressed, or to be just felt in different parts of my body. And so all of that to come to this kind of reflection of words or emotions that are called like rage or grief. Those are the ones I'm working with right now
Yeah, yeah,
in this
yeah.
conversation. I'm not
Yeah,
feeling them too much today, but in
yeah.
this particular conversation,
Totally.
and the also the roots of those energies having been passed down, and we know, an ancestral and intergenerational
Mhm.
patterns, and how that which hasn't had the space to be released, it just continues being embodied in the womb, and then in the womb it gets passed on, and so on and so forth. And so the liberation from that, but also the realness of the intensity and how common it is to fear the full depth of our feeling,
Yeah.
is something that I would love to talk more about with you, and just, yeah, explore that space.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Especially as female identified bodies in the world, this experience of being in relationship to our rage Ooh, I was working with a client yesterday, and this was really, we were touching in on this. And so I really love this invitation, because what I'm really feeling from you, first of all, I love language, right? Because I always I'm listening to how the words are a communication from the soul of something, almost like, again, this sort of like cosmic energy. So when you use the word, um, you were talking about feeling, being in the state of feeling your emotions, but being afraid that you might drown. I think, well,
Mhm.
this is beautiful, right? Because what are we talking about? We're talking about, you're bringing in water. We only can drown in water, right? You're bringing in water. You're bringing in both where we begin in water, in the embryo. We are breathing, living, growing in water. Water is also a representation of emotion, right? So when we use water as an archetype, we are, it symbolically stands for emotion. When you read them in tarot, any of the water stuff that comes up the cups, we're talking about the unconscious, right?
Mhm.
So when we start to use language, our body gives us, our energy gives us the words to help us receive the message, receive the communication, right? So here we are in the drowning of feeling. Oh, I'm going to drown in all this feeling. And so what I feel about that is, what we're hearing is, when we are in the idea of drowning, what we're feeling is we are water. We are a river of energy,
Mm.
but we have dammed ourselves up,
Mm.
right? So the experience is this: if we touch into the energy that we are, if we begin to pull the stone out of that dam, it's going to all come rushing out, and it's going to drown us. We cannot keep up with the amount of energy that's going to be released. So
Mhm.
I love this, because what this allows us to appreciate is the benefit of titration.
Mhm. Mhm. Which you introduced me to.
Yes. And
I had
what
no idea what
SE, yeah.
titration was before.
Yeah. And so somatic experiencing, it introduces this concept as well, this pendulation from being with to being, sort of stepping away. They'll talk about this and use this language, one drop at a time. Can we feel this one drop at a time?
Mhm.
Because we have conceived of a body that does not have the capacity. We've conceived that I cannot do this. We have structured ourselves in our thinking mind to fear feeling. It's not just something we do to ourselves. We're conditioned by, we're imprinted with this. Generations of people, generations of bodies before us that are saying, don't feel, don't feel, don't feel, don't feel. So we're
Mhm.
coming in and we're don't feel, right? Don't feel, don't feel, don't
Mhm.
feel. Right. And depending on the culture we grow in, and the the bodies that we come in and the information we come in with, and then the environment we're growing in, will either support feeling or not support feeling, right? So it's already there to some degree, that message. And titration is the medicine, right? So we are a river of feeling. We are a river of feeling. We are a river of energy. Let's be with one drop of this. So sometimes with, like clients, they'll be like, you know, they'll feel the energy of their vitality, which usually vitality suppressed feels like rage,
Mm.
anger. It feels destructive,
Mhm.
right? Our vitality, our life force can feel when it's, especially when it's been depressed, when it's been held down, can feel volcanic, eruptive. So we go one drop at a time. Let's just feel a little bit of that moving through you. Where do you feel your rage? I call it rage. I did an exercise yesterday. It's like, if your rage could make a body movement, what would that body movement look like? In this particular time, lots of time our hands like to express a lot. Our hands
Mm.
are really healing in terms of body parts. And this particular person's hands was like, I was like, ooh, it's got sound. It wants to create like a kind of clawing. All right, let's just be with that. Let's just be with that. Let's not read too much into it. Let's not try to find the story attached to it. Let's just be with the body wanting privilege, how the body wants to express this energy. Take a few moments to do that. and we'll come back in and we'll just see how was that. So that's how we work with these energies. We don't just go like, okay, well, like there's a dam there. Let's like sledgehammer it and let all the water rush. No, most of us are going to feel like we can't do that. It's going to get too hot, too fast. Again, that's traumatic. That's too
Mhm.
much. We need to do small. And then what's fascinating, I know you can probably feel that within yourself, Jasmine, is that we don't have to go that small anymore.
Mhm. Mhm.
Once we understand, like, oh, okay, that wasn't so bad. Oh, wow. Okay. I feel a little more like I can do this, right? After time and time, and that's how it feels for me now. Bring it.
Mhm.
I want to feel it. Wow. It's here to feel. What is it like to feel all of this vital life force I am, right? That I would otherwise make small by calling it sad or angry or, like, knock on wood, I haven't had to face a lot of loss recently, but I know that when that time comes, this body will, because it's broken open so much, it will meet it with a very open heart.
Mm.
You know, I you use the word broken, I'll be broken by this. And what it made me think about is how actually we keep ourselves kind of like sarcophaguses
Mm.
around feeling, like we're kind of imprisoning ourselves around feeling. So we get really hardened.
Mhm.
My work is, how soft can I get around this feeling? How much can I let this break me open?
Mhm.
How much can I let this feeling touch parts of me in my body? I could really use blood. I could really use oxygen that are really deprived. I use my shoulders. My shoulders often need a lot of like attention. Like, oh, how much can I let myself breathe life here into the hard spaces?
Mm.
Might hurt, but it's also going to nourish those parts of me that have been cut off from feeling. I
Mhm.
want to be broken open so I don't end up feeling imprisoned the way I do by
Mhm.
not feeling, by not wanting to feel this, right? So yeah, so this is beautiful, this invitation to be with this, because also, like, again, our language instructs us. I was
Mhm.
afraid I would drown. Oh, you're feeling the water. You're feeling the energy you are. You're feeling the way that if you go in too quick, it might be too much. So maybe I need to slow it down. But I also, in the like drowning in the emotion of it all, I'm acknowledging I am water.
Mhm.
I'm meant to move. I'm not meant to be frozen.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah. Mm,
Mm.
mm.
I love that we're playing in the space of water because it is Cancer season.
It is. Yes,
And
it
I am a
absolutely is.
Cancer baby. My
Oh,
birthday's in a couple weeks. So
oh,
I feel the depths of water energy so much.
yeah.
And so many of the people that I experience in the realms of empathic, intuitive humans that just care so deeply,
Mm,
whether it's about creating change in the world or about being a stand for something is uh, that is allowing for more people to be connected to their hearts. And I feel like you are one of those humans, and so we resonate in that frequency, and probably most of the people listening to that there is that sensitivity, that high level of sensitivity with uh the world itself and how we're interacting with the world, that for me in my experience was too much. And I was so conditioned into desensitizing myself, and the numbness that we're talking about, or how I'm getting it with being frozen, right? So much of this work that I've gotten to experience and that I love now facilitating is thawing out that frozenness, and then getting to tap into what if we were, this wild expression of the feminine. Water is also really feminine, quality. And so the wild expression of who we get to be when we're untamed, when we're unclaimed, if we feel all of ourselves and let that be how we walk and talk and breathe, and let that be a permission slip. And I feel
Yeah.
like that's so much of what I've gotten
Yeah.
in this aspect of what you're talking about with water having the pathway opened, and then how we get to, in the different stages of our journey, depending on our own capacity and what we're navigating and what we're allowing, for that to be something that is also nourishing and nurturing, but also something that is raw and is unfiltered. And in
Mhm.
that unapologetic owning of ourselves, I think is the catalyst for our soul being able to fully express itself in who we came here to be, or how we came here to remember ourselves. And somatic work specifically, and how we're talking about it, is such a gift in that way. And in working with you, I was inspired. I don't know if I've shared this. I feel like I might have, but I'm not sure. I was inspired into getting my training in integrative somatic trauma therapy. And
Amazing.
so I've had the honor of working with Dr. Peter Levine as well. And with
Hey.
the ways that I have been now weaving in the knowledge of body-based transformation
Mhm.
as it relates to the spirit realm,
Yes.
has just given me a kind of freedom that I didn't know I could ever have.
Mm.
And you and I have talked about the attachment to this, to the stories that I had with my identity being a Black woman, a queer woman, also non-binary, and confused about if woman even feels right. Some of the time it definitely does not, but that's something I'm still navigating.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and the privilege and the power dynamics that come with being in proximity to different bodies with different levels of access and resources and things like this, that
Mm.
to have these openings and these expansions of what freedom gets to be for me and my body, and for other women or humans who have struggled through, barriers and challenges that most or others might not ever face. I think that there is something that's so profound about getting to be in our bodies and love our bodies and experience the richness of the quality of our inner world when one of the analogies one of my spiritual teachers, Adi Shakti, who is actually going to be in another episode I'm really excited about,
Yeah.
I she talks about taking out the pebbles from the backpack. So as if we're all carrying, this backpack, and
Mhm.
taking out the petals, and then sometimes life gives us more pebbles, and then so we're just taking them out, and sometimes they come on. And so how much more light and open our hearts become
Mhm.
as we take out the pebbles, whether
Mhm.
they're the pebbles of society has put on the backpack, whether they're the pebbles that we might have, self-imposed in some way, or our family or our circumstances. It gets me really excited about what becomes possible when we are lighter and our hearts
Mhm.
feel more held by ourselves and by spirit and by each other, of what we get to co-create in those kinds of spaces.
Mhm. Yeah, and as you say that, I can feel like this is what's so beautiful when you're expressing this release. And we can close our eyes and feel this together, because that's almost like the invitation here, right? Of like releasing the heavy, right? One pebble at a time. And that what our bodies begin to experience at the invitation of that imagery is this opening of the chest, right? And when our chest feels open, our heart feels more present. And then when our heart feels more present, and this is what you're sort of like, I feel your invitations, then what's possible?
Mhm.
Wow. what's possible if I don't have to protect my heart. And I was talking about that with another client the other day about how what we think shapes how the body will respond. So
Mhm.
if I think I'm not safe or I'm not loved, then the posturing reflects it. The C curve, the, you know, kind of collapsing in on ourselves, or people will speak like, I feel like there's like this knot at the back of my heart. Right?
Mm.
The body says, okay, got it. You're not safe. I will protect you. Right? We'll cross our arms, or we'll
Mhm.
feel energetically like we're not available.
Mhm.
Right? We'll just put up an energetic wall, a boundary. Boundaries are important, but we can, especially for those of us who are walking around in bodies feeling like we are not safe, we can impose so many boundaries that we are not accessible even to ourselves.
Mhm.
Right? And it's painful. It's painful to walk around that boundary. So when we begin to reconceive, restory, begin to feel the possibility of inherent safety, of feeling no matter what can happen, will not disconnect from the love that I am.
Mhm.
Like, I am love. I love me so much that no matter what happens, that frequency cannot be changed. And the moment that we begin to embody that, what else is possible? It really does feel infinite. It really does feel kind of like, when I was reading, I think Lee Harris was posting something about sort of like the frequency of the heart being cosmic. And it does feel like that. It's like I've plugged into something so much greater than myself. And that's why I was saying, I don't want to lead any other way. I don't want to be in a transactional relationship with anyone. If the only transaction I'm interested in is the heart exchange, that's the only one that's nourishing. And it's the only one that truly feels like it's going to create what we all understand we're here to do, which is to create a new way of being.
Mhm.
So when I hear that beautiful offering from your spiritual teacher around this pebble, which I love that you said petal too, because it's kind of like, oh, there's like flowers in there and there's rocks in there. Like a petal and a pebble. Some are lighter, some are heavier. But like when we're just kind of like, whoo, okay, and that one's gone, and that one's gone, and that one's gone. And oh, somebody put something in there. Do I want it? I don't know if I want to carry that one. Maybe I'll keep one in my pocket, but I don't want it on my back. Like, it's beautiful. It's so expansive. It's so expansive. And it's a gorgeous vibration to feel.
Mhm.
I think you almost captured in all of that too what wild, wealthy, and liberated is. It's just the
Yeah.
essence of it, right? That yin, that feminine, that creative, that infinite, that possible, that unfiltered expression,
Mm.
right? That
Mhm.
freedom.
Well, thank you. I was not intending to instead.
Mm,
I would love to hear anything that might feel ignited as you tune into those words or those frequencies, and any
mm,
of them or all of them of in where you find yourself right now in
mm,
the current chapter, current stage in your journey.
mm.
How does wild, wealthy, or liberated, how do you feel like you're embodying any or all of those words as we close
Yeah.
up this beautiful time together?
Mm, thank you. I think I am feeling how I there's something about the creative expression of the light that I am, feeling like it is in the deep exploration of all possibilities. So like recently, I used to, before I became a psychotherapist and then all the things that are now here with me, I was a singer. I spent a long time singing. on, stages and things like that, but recently I go, oh, my wild, my liberated wants to sing.
Mm.
And the singing it wants to do is in some ways wild because it's just sound. I just want to make sound and I just want to vibrate. And I also want to share it. I don't want to hide it. I want people to hear it. I want to hear what they hear when they hear it. There's no words. It's just like just sound, right? I'm like, oh, I want to make sound. So when I think of my wild and my liberated, I'm like, there's this real calling within me that's like, what else am I meant to sound? What else am I meant to say? What else am I meant to write? What else am I meant to express? Like, how much expression can this body make? Right? Like, that's what feels kind of like both this wildly unimaginable. What else is possible? And the liberated, that it's very liberating for me to show up in all the expressions I am and not feel like I have to contain them in any kind of way or compartmentalize them, And I saw somebody share something the other day that was like about showing up and not betraying ourselves as a form of liberation, right? That we all have situations where we can show up in the world. Maybe we're asked to do something or asked to be something. And we know somewhere deep inside we're not aligned with that. And when we speak to not being aligned and saying no to that, that's incredibly liberating. So it's like, oh, if I can also continue to move in that direction where when I know that something doesn't feel right for me, it's in honoring that I'm liberated, right? Not feeling the shoulds of the world anymore, that I'm carrying those anymore. Wealthy is an interesting one. I don't know where I'm going with this one. I feel wealthy. I feel tremendously wealthy in terms of just my heart feels wealthy. Wealthy to me feels like alive, nourished, vibrant, right? Money is an interesting thing I'm moving with. Money is an interesting thing. I keep saying, I just want to keep people at the heart. And people are like, well, what's the exchange rate on that? And I'm like, oh, money's such an interesting thing for me these days. I don't know. Money's changing. The energy of money is changing. I know I'm in a world now and I have a family to support and I need to charge money. I'm also at a place where the structure of a 45-minute psychotherapy session doesn't feel good to me. It doesn't feel aligned. I want more time with people. I want to have more time to explore this. And so I have to reevaluate what that looks like with money. I don't know what feels right. So wealthy, I feel wealthy in so many ways. I want to generate more of those ways. And in terms of how we might define wealthy in terms of money, the question I keep asking that is like, what feels nourishing? What feels nourishing now? Right? What feels like an even exchange? Right? So wealthy is a good one because I really think it's a really lovely invitation to keep feeling. There are conversations around wealth, money, legacy, what we're passing on, what we're here to create. Abundance. Yes. And how does the butterfly feel wealthy? Right? How does the tree feel wealthy?
I love that. I love that.
Right? What if we were defining it in that way? What if because we are nature, how does wealth get felt in that way? I want to feel that. I want that to lead me. And know that whatever else, I'll be taken care of. We'll be taken care of. I want us to take care of each other.
That's such a beautiful question, I think, to leave with. What does wealthy feel like for the trees, for the butterfly, for nature in all of its forms and all of its expressions? And how do we get to tap into and interrelate with that? I love this. It's a beautiful place to land.
Yeah, literally. Yes. Yes. Oh, Justin, this was just so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on here and being such an honored guest. I'm so grateful for you sharing your heart and your journey and our journeys together.
Yeah.
And
Continued, yeah.
yes, 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 yes. Mm.
Amazing. Thank you.